Good evening. I'm here in a marina in St George's, towards the south end of Grenada, and tomorrow, say noonish, I'm going to set off to go overnight down to Trinidad by myself, which is fine, but it's sort of an intricate sail from a technical point of view. And maybe the easiest thing is if I just show you what I'm looking at on my laptop, so you know what my thoughts are before I set off, as well as the usual doing customs immigration and all the normal things. So let's have a look at this. This here is Grenada. I'm here in the bottom left hand corner in St George's. This here down at the bottom is Trinidad, and I'm aiming roughly for this point here, which is a cut through some islands on the western side of Trinidad. This up here is Tobago. And the patterns you see on the screen here is how the wind is pretty much over the next 24 hours. So ideally sailing in a straight line from here to here looks good. I've got the wind on my beam. It's a fairly nice wind, not too gusty, not too wavy. So on the surface of it looks pretty good. The thing I have to think about though, well, there's a few things I have to think about. Thing number one is if we look at the currents in this area, this is the equatorial current, and so somewhere around here when I'm kind of halfway across, the equatorial current is running at about 1.71, between 1.5 and 2 knots, say, running up this way, so running northwest, which is a shame really because I'm trying to head south. So I'm going to have that against me, both slowing me down but also pushing me west. So to compensate for that, I'm going to have to point the boat a little up into the wind so I can crab sideways in this general direction. So that's the first pain I have to think about. And the other thing to think about is around here where this green dot is, there are some oil platforms, and the standard advice is actually to end up slightly east of the easternmost oil platform, which possibly means heading even further upwind or pointing the boat even further upwind than I'd like to. And the reason for that is simply because if I end up too far west, there's two factors there. One is I'm a little close to Venezuela, which this area here hasn't always had the greatest reputation for safety in terms of boaters. So the theory is heading more east buys you some security. I don't think, reading currently, that any of this is terribly dangerous, but since I'm a first timer crossing this strait, I'll try and keep east if I can. Some people simply head through, there's basically two large oil fields and they head through the middle of them, but if I can head east of them I will. And the other reason to keep east is if I end up drifting too far west, fighting my way back up through the current is really going to slow me down. So overall tomorrow I am going to try and keep as east of the straight line as I possibly can. And the last thing I need to think about for my arrival is I'm trying to time my arrival so when I get to these narrows here, the current, the tide through them flows north or south through them at different times of day, and I'm trying to arrive just in time so that I squeak through the islands before the current turns against me. So hope that makes sense, but those are my things. I could possibly go in a straight line, but I'm going to have to point up into the weather in order to counter this current and try to head east of the oil platforms if I can, and also try to time it so that when I arrive at these straits, I arrive in good time to get through them before the tide turns against me. Couldn't be easier, could it? It's nice that the weather's quite benign though, so at least that removes some of the headache from it, and I'm hoping if I can just be patient and plod along, all will be well. And we're off, just motoring out of the bay now. It's a little brisk, but it's sunny and brisk. And ahead of us, we're going to turn around this headland here and then head south, or rather a little east of south, to try and compensate for the current. just round the corner, and it's a little bit breezy and a little bit choppy, so I'm just heading up to wind as much as possible, still motoring as well with a bit of sail up, and once we're a couple of miles clear of the land I'll start to think about what the wind is actually doing. There's a boat ashore there, largish passenger looking boat ashore in Black Bay on the end point of Grenada heading south. What I'm hoping is that this very choppy sea evens out when we get a bit further off Grenada. It's quite bouncy and sapping us of speed, which we need. It seems a bit odd that it's choppy, so I'm hoping it evens out. Otherwise it's going to be a very tiring night. And we're currently losing about a knot to the current, which feels about right. Heading towards a glorious sunset, I think. You can probably hear from the engine noises that we're still using some engine power, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep ourselves upwind against the current so that we don't drift backwards towards the Venezuelan coast. I'm hoping we'll be able to turn that off before too long. And as far as the oil rigs ahead of us goes, depending on how the wind's doing, we'll either be going to the east of them, to the west of them, or through the middle of them. But we'll probably find out in about 3 or 4 hours which one that is, and then we're going to turn to starboard and hopefully run more quietly down towards the coast of Trinidad. It's 7:40 p.m, still plodding along up here. We're about 15 miles from the nearest gas field, Poinsettia, but I can already see the lights of it on the horizon. So that's one big lit up object, that is. It's about 9 p.m. I can see both oil rigs now, and I have them both on radar, so I'm going to try and go between them, somewhat closer to the eastern one, but I'll still keep about 3 miles off from that and watch out for anything else that might be here, other ships in the water. But it's looking good so far. Also, I've made enough progress east against the current so that I'm happy to turn the engine off and head more south. I'm still making a slight bit of east, but I'm pretty confident now that I won't accidentally go to Venezuela. So yeah, it's looking good. So I've got maybe, I don't know, about another hour before I pass the rig, and after that, as long as our course looks good and the wind holds, which it should, then we're looking good. Pretty slow through the water though, so we've still got 1.5 knots of tide against us, so we're doing about 6 knots through the water and about 4.5 over ground, but we're still going to get to the top of Trinidad in time to catch the tide. So yeah, overall pretty happy with that. It's 1 a.m. and we've still got about 6 hours to go, but over in the distance I can actually see a very faint outline of the coast of Trinidad, I guess because it's a very moonlit night, so that's good. We've still got 1.5 to 2 knots against us, pushing us away from Trinidad. But the speed through the water at the moment is about 6.5 knots, so we're not doing too badly. 4.5 over ground. We're getting there, pretty much on schedule. Also, compared to the lumpy start when we left Grenada, it's now very smooth. If only we could see it. We're still going too fast, and I don't really want to be at the mouth of the channel, somewhere I really don't know, in the dark. So we are now hove to, and I'm going to take an hour off here, since there's, if I get closer to shore, there's a bit too much traffic close to shore. But there really isn't any traffic out here right now. So we're pretty much not moving through the water, but the current is still carrying us back northwest. But that's okay, it won't really carry us very far if I take an hour off. I'm still having to keep watch though. There's a few ships around. Something on radar about 5 miles off, heading this way, doing 15 knots. I need to keep an eye on. It's just occurred to me the blob moving towards me on the radar. It's just a light rain shower, not a ship after all. Good morning, beautiful morning. Look, approaching the western tip of Trinidad. 10 miles further out that way is Venezuela, and we are going in this way and going down one of the narrow entrances that will lead us to Chaguaramas. You can actually hear the forest. That's so cool. Right, I've arrived in Trinidad and I've got the dinghy ready, and now I'm going to go and do the check-in process. The main reason we're here in Trinidad is to get some boat work done, not least of which is to refresh that bottom paint that wasn't doing so well when we left St. Lucia, so it's time for the haul out. Here we are, propped up on the hard in power boats in Trinidad, and looking good, but I've got a lot of work to do. Starting with taking down the Q flag, but more than that we have to strip the boat, so all the sails have to come off. This dinghy needs to be put away, all the loose ropes need to come off, the spray hood needs to come off, all the clutter at the back of the boat, solar panels need to come off. Tell you what though, it's hot. Sunny and hot, very scorchy inside the boat.